Hi, my name is Erica, and today I'm going to show you how to make a croquembouche. First off, we're going to start with the pastry cream. I'm going to put some half and half on the stove to simmer. And while that's simmering, I'm going to beat up some eggs with a half a cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of flour, and you just want to make sure that everything is completely incorporated. And now we'll wait for our cream to simmer. All right, now that the cream has come to a simmer, I'm going to pour it over the eggs. And you just want to be careful here because you don't want to cook your eggs, so pour it in gradually and keep stirring. And now you're going to put it back over the stove on medium heat. And stir for about 5 minutes until it thickens. All right, now that my pastry cream has thickened, I'm going to transfer it from the stove into my bowl over here. And then I'm going to whisk in about 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Once that's incorporated, you're just going to cover it with plastic wrap and make sure that you put it right down on top of your pastry cream so it doesn't form a skin. And then this will stick in the refrigerator for about 4 hours. All right, so the pastry cream has been in the fridge for 4 hours and now it's nice and firm and chilled. I'm going to put a half a cup of heavy cream in the mixer and mix that until it's like whipped cream. You want to put it on high so that way it beats it up real nice. All right, now that your heavy cream is nice and thick, you want it to basically make peaks when it's done. I'm going to transfer this into a small bowl because I'm now going to beat the pastry cream so that way it's nice and creamy. Now that you've gotten all your lumps out of the pastry cream, you're going to fold your heavy cream in. And this just thins out the cream so that way it's easier to pipe. Now that everything is fully incorporated, you're just going to put the plastic wrap back on top of the pastry cream just like you did before and let it chill for about an hour or until you're ready to pipe. Now we're going to work on our pot of choux. You're going to put some water and butter over the stove. And you want to make sure that both of these are really chill because you want them to come to a boil at the same time. If the butter isn't melted by the time the water comes to a boil, you just want to take it off the stove and let it melt because you don't want basically the water to evaporate before you add the flour. All right, now that the butter has melted and the water has come to a boil, I am going to add a half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to take that off the stove and dump in my flour. And you basically just want to stir all this in before you put it back in on the stove, and it should have a consistency of like mashed potatoes. All right, now that that's all mixed in, I'm going to put it back on the stove and I'm going to put it over heat for about 5 minutes while I dry the dough. And this, you just want to actually evaporate the water out of the dough so that way you can incorporate more eggs. It will help make your pastries puff more. All right, now that my dough has dried, I'm going to transfer it to the mixer and beat in my eggs. I'm going to do one at a time, and in between each egg, you want to just make sure to beat the dough so that way it's fully incorporated. The dough will become stringy at certain points, but will come back together once the egg is fully beaten in. All right, it should stick to the beater once it's finished. And now I'm going to transfer this into a piping bag. The best way to fill a piping bag is to just put it over your hand and scoop it in. Before I start piping, I preheated the oven to 425. So when you're piping, you want to use a 1/2 inch tip, and you want to make about a 1.5 inch mound and keep them spaced out about 1.5 inches apart. This mixture will make about 55 mounds. I'm just going to continue to pipe these, and then we will go ahead and take the egg wash and pat down the little tips on each one of the mounds. All right, now that I have finished piping my pot au choux, I am going to take my egg mixture and pat down all the tips. Now, baking these, you're going to start the oven at 425 and bake for 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes, you're going to reduce your oven temperature to 400 and bake for another 20 minutes. And then basically you need to dry the dough out, so you're going to shut the oven off and just let them hang out in the oven for another half an hour. Now that those are complete, I'm going to stick them in the oven. All right, my puff pastries are out of the oven right now and they're cooling. And in the meantime, I'm going to mix together a chocolate sauce. I'm going to start with a 1/2 cup of heavy cream and bring that to a simmer. All right, now that my cream has come to a simmer, I'm going to take it off the heat and incorporate my chocolate. I'm just going to stir that together until it's fully melted. To fill the cream puff, I use a chopstick and I just poke a hole in the bottom of the puff pastry, just so it's easy for your tip to fit in there. Once you finish poking the holes in the bottom of the cream puff, you just take your pastry bag and you start filling them. You don't want to fill them too much because you don't want the cream to be like exploding out of them. I'm going to continue filling the rest of these cream puffs, and once I'm finished, we'll be ready to assemble. To start, I went to my local arts and crafts store and I got a styrofoam cone. I wrapped it in parchment paper and secured the ends with 2 toothpicks. To assemble the croquembouche, you just basically dip the cream puff in chocolate. You want to cover about 1/3 of the way up. And you want a lot of chocolate on there because everybody loves chocolate. So you're going to just stick the cream puff bottom to the cone and take a toothpick and secure it right into the cone. I have toothpicks that are flat on the bottom, but if you don't have toothpicks that are flat on one side, you can use a thimble to push the pointy side in further so people can't see that there's toothpicks. And so I'm just going to continue to assemble by just staggering the cream puffs along the cone. So I'm just finishing up on my last few puff pastries on here. And the last one, right on top. So to decorate my croquembouche, I have some chocolate, and I'm going to put it in this Ziploc bag. And I'm just going to cut the littlest of the tip off just so I can get a nice little decoration going on there. So you can just swirl it around. You might have some gaps. You can use the chocolate to fill in the gaps and do whatever you like. Some people like to stick candy all over it, or you can use colored chocolate for the different holidays, but pretty much just have fun with it. And here's my croquembouche.